Imagine this, a powerful nation, gripped by a massive revolt on its own streets. At the same time, you've got a huge military buildup in one of the world's most critical waterways. And hanging over all of it, the shadow of a nuclear program that just won't die. Okay, let's get into this incredibly dangerous standoff between Iran, the United States, and Israel.
We're going to start with this really blunt warning from Iran's army chief. It just perfectly sets the tone. And, when Iran says the Zionist regime, they mean Israel. So let's be clear about what they're saying here. Our forces are on high alert, and if you mess with us, it's going to have massive consequences for everybody.
So the big question is, right, how did we get to the edge of this cliff? Well, it's a story that weaves together an internal crisis, a ton of external pressure, and a really high-stakes nuclear game. We're going to unpack all the key pieces of this puzzle.
To really get what's happening on the outside, we've got to start by looking inside, at the absolute turmoil that's been erupting on the streets of Iran itself.
It all kicked off in late December. People were just fed up with the rising cost of living. But as you can see, what started with concerns about the economy just exploded. It spiraled into this huge nationwide movement demanding the end of the clerical government. And, well, the state's response was incredibly fast and incredibly brutal.
And this is where it gets really chilling. This is a first-hand account, and it paints such a grim picture of what it was like on the ground. We were hearing reports of security forces firing live rounds into crowds, literally turning city streets into battlefields. For so many people, this wasn't just a protest anymore. It really felt like a war.
And here you can really see the information war that was being fought at the same time. On one side, you have the Iranian government spinning the story about foreign-backed riots and terrorism, trying to make the whole movement seem illegitimate. But on the other side, the protesters are saying, no, this is a real outcry against our terrible economy and the state's violence. Just two completely different, totally irreconcilable stories.
Okay, so here's the official number from the government. They've publicly acknowledged that just over 3,000 people died in the crackdown. But that number is really, really disputed. Because then you see this. Wow. Human rights groups estimate the real number is at least double that. And some unverified reports, they suggest it could be as high as 30,000. This huge gap isn't just about statistics. It really shows you how hard it is to get real information when there are internet blackouts and what many believe is a state-sponsored cover-up. And the crackdown wasn't random at all. It was systematic. The government shut down the internet, they detained over 40,000 people, and they used some seriously extreme language. I mean, the supreme leader called the demonstrators vandals, while the attorney general called them enemies of God, which in Iran is a charge that can get you the death penalty. Okay. So let's zoom out now from what's happening inside Iran and look at how that connects to this massive military standoff in the region. Because right as Iran was cracking down on its own citizens, the U.S. started seriously ramping up its military presence in the Gulf.
So you had Washington moving its pieces onto the board. They sent in the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group. That's a huge aircraft carrier with its whole fleet of ships, and a second one was on the way. This was on top of the 30,000 U.S. troops already there. And Iran? They responded with their own show of force. They held live-fire naval drills and made direct threats against U.S. bases, ships, and of course, their key ally, Israel.
And right in the middle of all this action is the Strait of Hormuz. This little waterway is absolutely vital to the entire global economy. Think about it. More than a fifth of all the world's oil passes through here. Any conflict, any disruption could send catastrophic shockwaves through energy markets all over the world. And just when you think it couldn't get any more complicated, you have to add in the nuclear factor. This is the issue that takes what is a very serious regional crisis and turns it into a global one. This quote, it tells you everything you need to know about how Iran sees its nuclear program. It's not just about technology for them, it's a matter of deep national pride. They're saying, look, even after you've hit us with strikes, even after you've killed our scientists, our knowledge, our expertise, that can't be destroyed. So yeah, past strikes did a lot of damage to major sites like Fordo and Natanz, but Iran didn't just give up. No way. Intelligence agencies have noticed a new site. They're calling it Pickaxe Mountain, and it's buried even deeper underground. The goal here is pretty simple. Build something that's way harder, maybe even impossible, to hit with a conventional airstrike. So you might be thinking, can't they just talk this out? Well, at the time, if you listen to what both sides were saying, it was clear there was a massive divide.
You had the U.S. administration saying Iran was seriously talking, hoping for a deal where they'd give up their nuclear weapons. But Iran's position has always been firm. Sure, we can have nuclear talks, but our ballistic missiles, our defense systems, those are never, ever on the table.
And you have to remember, Iran isn't doing this in a vacuum. It's got friends in high places. Russia signed a massive $25 billion deal to build new nuclear reactors. And China? They've reportedly been sending over key ingredients for Iran's ballistic missile program, so they're directly undermining Western efforts to contain them.
So when you put all of this together, the chaos on the streets, the military muscle flexing, the nuclear ambitions, you end up right where we are now, in a really, really precarious stalemate.
Now, here's a factor that is a real game changer. Israel has shifted its strategy. For years, the idea was deterrence. Contain Iran with secret operations, a shadow war. But after the Hamas attacks on October 7th, that thinking completely changed. The new strategy is preemption. That means striking a threat before it can become an existential one. And that shift makes another direct war way more likely.
So what you have is this really scary feedback loop, right? After that direct war in June, you've got Israel racing to build up its air defenses again, while at the same time Iran is racing to rebuild its military and nuclear programs. Both sides are basically out in the open preparing for the next round.
And this brings us to the core contradiction, the paradox at the very heart of this whole standoff. Every single major player, Iran, US, Israel, is sending the exact same mixed message. They all say they're ready for dialogue, ready for a diplomatic fix, while at the same time they are very loudly and very publicly preparing for an absolutely devastating war.
So, which one is it going to be? Dialogue or destruction? With such a volatile situation inside Iran, a massive military presence just waiting in the Gulf, and a nuclear program that keeps pushing forward, the real question isn't just if a conflict can be avoided, but for how much longer. The entire region is truly on the edge.